You're listening to the Spirited Entrepreneur Podcast, a show that's dedicated to cultivating intention, awareness, and flow in business and life. Join your host, Nicole Harlow, and other like-minded business owners in the Spirited Entrepreneur community over at www.thesepodreview.com.
Hi, this is Nicole Harlow, and you're listening to the Spirited Entrepreneur Podcast. Today's episode, I'm going to go really deep into my personal schedule and talk you through not only what I do day to day in my business to create lots of awesome productivity, but I'm also going to tell you the ethos behind why I chose to do the schedule that I have right now. Just to say, this hasn't always been the way that my schedule has been. I have spent lots of time just kind of freely floating through whatever work with not a lot of organization and not a ton of productivity. Over the years, I've tightened up this schedule, and over the last 6 months, I've gotten it super tight. And that's not to say it's not flexible. It is most certainly flexible, but it's super tight in that it really supports my needs, both my self-care needs and my business needs, my emotional and psychological needs as well. And it's really helped me to become so productive in my business and create not just productivity, but also ease and flow in my business. And I even schedule in some time for just free-flowing thinking, creating new creative pathways in my brain, and just allowing myself some time to daydream and just dream big about my business. So without further ado, let's get on to today's episode. So I thought that it would be really cool to, geeky and cool actually, to go through my weekly schedule and kind of talk you through how I create my week so that I have optimum productivity, optimum fun, optimum peace, and optimum ease, because these are all variables that are really important to me in my week: productivity, fun, peace, and ease. It all starts with Sunday night, and this isn't something that I always did. It's actually quite a new thing. So maybe within the last I'd say that it's been less than 6 months, but I have noticed such a profound difference in my business since I started doing this Sunday night practice. And I can't say that I got the idea from somewhere specifically. It was rather pulled up a few different concepts together to make a Sunday night ritual that felt really, really authentic to me and has been really helpful in my business. So I take weekends off, and so I try to spend Saturday and most of the day Sunday doing things that I love and I enjoy, and in addition to just some getting shit done kind of things that rolled over from the week, because I do like to get my boring stuff done, like food shopping and cleaning the house and all that jazz. I like to get that done during the week if I can squeeze it in on a Thursday or a Friday afternoon, because I don't really want to do that stuff on the weekends. On the weekends, I actually just want to enjoy my time off and go to the beach or read or go out with friends or see a movie, go shopping, anything that I want to do. And I don't really want to spend it doing some boring stuff. But I do make an exception for Sunday nights, which is when I start to transition slowly back into work mode. So I set my alarm on my phone for, I think it's 9:30. Sometimes this happens at 9:30, sometimes it happens at 10:30. It depends on whether I'm watching a movie or if I have the time. And sometimes I do it earlier in the day on Sunday if I just kind of want to get it done. But the most important thing is at some point on Sunday, this happens. It's my weekly check-in. I sit down with the same notebook every week, every Sunday. I like to light a candle or have some incense or have my crystals around, or do something that makes it feel a little bit more ritualistic rather than just boringly like sitting down and sort of charting my week. I like to make it a nice ritual so I have a good connotation and association in my mind when I sit down to do this. And I actually really enjoy it. And I would say it takes me about 45 minutes, sometimes even upwards to an hour, but it is the best hour that I spend all week. It's one of the best investments that I make on myself and my business is to just sit down and do this weekly check-in. So I cannot sing its praises enough. I'm going to walk you through the questions that I ask myself and what I do every Sunday night. So the very first thing that I do is I read over last week's weekly check-in. I just want to make sure where I was at last week. I like to see what things I was inspired by, and I like to see also patterns, any patterns emerging, and what my top priorities were for the week, so I can see if I hit them, hit all my priorities, or I can see the things that didn't happen or what was missing. So yeah, I start off just by reassessing and reading over last week's and seeing where I was at, and then I kind of mentally compare that to this week. Then I rewrite my yearly goals. It seems like a repetitive task to every week rewrite your goals. I find it really empowering, and it's really helped me to stay on track. In the beginning of the year, I set up goals that I'd like to achieve this year, and I think there's about 4 or 5 goals, things that I'd like to do. And every week, I just rewrite them, and I recommit to those goals. Now, this is also really important just to know or remember that, like, when you rewrite your goals, you don't have to stick with them. I mean, might get to a point where either 1, you've achieved the goal already, or 2, it just doesn't fit. And I like rewriting the goals because every week I get to ask myself, does this still fit? Is this still something that I want to do? Rather than just setting these arbitrary goals in January, now we're in June and it's 6 months and I can say, okay, so what have I achieved, or is this still something that I do want to achieve? So I rewrite my yearly goals and I just visualize myself achieving them and just send some good positive energy towards achieving those goals. Then I rewrite my 90-day goals. So I usually have, this year I've been trying something different where I have overarching goals that I'd like to achieve this year, but then I have sort of smaller 90-day goals, and the 90-day goals will eventually get me to the yearly goals. So whether that's a financial goal to hit a certain mark for the quarter, or whether it's a goal like, for example, if my goal was to grow my mailing list to like a certain number, then part of my 90-day goals would be like to break that number down, maybe adding 500 in 90 days, or maybe it's adding 1,000 or 2,000, depending on how big your mailing list is. I really believe in the importance of breaking down big goals into smaller, manageable chunks. And so I've done that, and I spread them over 90 days. But now, just to point out, I don't have so if you were to separate the year into 4 quarters, I don't have 90-day goals that I've written out for all of the year. I don't know what my 90-day goals will be in the 3rd or the 4th quarter, if we're in the 2nd quarter now. For the reason being that I want to hit my yearly goals early. So if I have the opportunity to hit my financial goals by the 2nd quarter, then that's awesome. I can only level up from there and upgrade my goals. So I haven't separated everything out to say, okay, if I work steadily for the whole year, then I'll achieve my goals. Rather, I use the 90-day goals as getting a big push towards my bigger goals. Whether that's in growing my mailing list or having the amount of, a set amount of purchasers for one of my courses, or a certain number of clients, or an overarching financial goal. I really like this idea of breaking it down into 90-day goals, and it definitely feels more manageable. And also, I think when you break it down to 90-day goals, you get an opportunity to say, even at a deeper level or a more mundane level, actually, where you can say, you know what, this goal isn't really working for me anymore. And you can add new things. Like, it wasn't one of my goals to start a podcast, but I had the idea and then I had to add it to my list. And that became one of my new 90-day goals, was to launch the podcast. And I did it. So now I have a whole new set of 90-day goals. And they do, they do change, as time passes. And I get the opportunity to see if I'm going to hit my bigger overarching goals by how well I'm doing on my 90-day goals. And I think just the same thing, rewriting them gives me the opportunity and the clarity to see if they still fit and if it still aligns with my goals. So I visualize myself hitting those 90-day goals, and I send some good positive energy their way. Next, I move on to core desired feelings. And if you're a fan of Danielle LaPorte's Desire Map, you'll be familiar with this. If not, you should go and get it, because it is truly a life-changing book, and core desired feelings are a part of my daily check-ins, and they're also a part of my weekly check-ins. So I will write down my core desired feelings. So how do I want to feel in my work or in my life over the next week? I kind of set myself up with 2 or 3 that will help anchor me for the week and help just give me a framework around the work that I do. So how do I want to feel? Quite often I'm drawn to the words inspired and productive. They show up a lot. And expert, feeling very expert in my business and my industry. After I've set myself up with my core desired feelings for the week, then I move on to wins from last week. So I'm going to sit there and I just go through, in my mind, I kind of play over the week, and I write down 4 or 5 things that went really well in the week. So whether they were awesome podcast episodes I was proud of, or gaining a new client, or something, just hitting a new milestone at the gym, or even if it's just waking up early every morning and I'm excited about it. I write from big to small, any things that I think can be categorized as a win from last week. And this is why it's important to kind of read over my week from the week before, because I can see if I hit any of my priorities or goals from the week before. I also write down what didn't happen last week. So quite often for me, I notice this is where pattern recognition comes in handy, and why it's good to sort of write this in the same notebook every week, because I can look back week from week and say, okay, what didn't happen? And when I look back and I see a pattern of, for example, meditation didn't happen, or exercise didn't happen, or communicating with friends or family or being social. So I can see this pattern of what didn't happen throughout the week, and I can make strategic or intuitive changes that will help me to start achieving those things as well, and bring some bit more balance into my life. Yeah, so I write down what didn't happen, not in a judging way of myself, but just in a bird's eye view of what things didn't happen. Or maybe there's some specific things that didn't happen. Like I thought that I was going to write a blog post, but I didn't. It also, if I keep good track of what's happening and what's not happening, it makes me more sensitive about my time. And so I know how much I actually can achieve in one week, So if consistently the blog post isn't happening, then I have the opportunity to say, okay, well, maybe I just don't have enough time to write that blog post, or maybe something else needs to get cut out so I can prioritize writing the blog post. Then I like this one. I write down my major lessons for the week. And you'll be amazed, every week for me there is a lesson that comes out. A lesson in either the way that I'm working, a lesson in life, a lesson about myself, a lesson about other people. There's just always one quite profound lesson that comes out of the week. And so I like to mine through to find the golden nuggets to write down of the lesson. Then I write an inspiration or inspirations. I'm also surprised by every week. I'm inspired by something completely different. And I tend to, change my mind a lot and jump from idea to idea. So I tend to have a lot of disparate inspirations, but I like to keep a catalog so I can go through week to week and say, okay, so this week I was inspired by this book I was reading, by this concept, by an idea of creating this, that, or the other thing. So I will go through and catalog my inspirations, like what was really inspiring me for the week. And then I finish off with my top priorities for the week. And this is not just about what needs to get done. This isn't just a to-do list. The top priorities is more, what can I do this week that will give me the greatest probability of having an awesome week. And so it's not just about what are the top things that I have to get done in work or in my business. It's a top priority to exercise this week. It's a top priority to eat healthily, call my friends, be social, have sex, and enjoy time with a partner, read books, learn, stay inspired. There are lots of little things that make up my top priorities for the week, and not many of them are work related. I just write down, it's usually about the top 3 things that have to happen in work. And then the others are kind of populated by some more self-care things that are my important top priorities of the week. When I'm finished that, I look it over and I pull out a sheet of paper. I use the same sheet of paper like every week. It's just a template for the week. And that's when I write down, sort of list it from Monday to Sunday. It's got every day on there. And it has a little calendar so I can write down everything. And so I look at my Google Calendar, which is where I schedule everything. And I just like to see an overview of what needs to be done in the week. So do I have any appointments? Do I have anything that's scheduled goes on the calendar first. So if I have calls with a new client or an existing client, those things are going to go on there. If I'm teaching a webinar, that's going to go on there. If I need to record a podcast and have that uploaded by a certain time, that's going to go on there. So any hard and fixed deadlines go on first. And then I fill out the rest of the schedule by what I'd like to be working on during the week, when my deadlines are. And then I have this master sheet of paper that has all of my clients on there and what their needs are for the week. So I use sticky notes, little Post-it notes to do that. And I make sure that that's updated and it's clear about what needs to happen for the week. Like I said, this takes me about an hour. It's so great. It's so worth spending this hour. It gets me so well set up for the week. When it comes to Monday morning, I know exactly what I'm working on. I don't spend any time trying to figure out what to do. I know exactly what to do. But I'm also, on Sunday nights, not working. I'm really just getting myself in the zone and putting together all of the organizational pieces. So when it comes to Monday morning, I'm ready to rock and roll and I don't have to worry about it. This allows me to just start Monday fresh with not only knowing what my top priorities are for the week, but I also know how I want to feel, and I know, and I'm aligned with my goals. So yeah, for me, the Sunday night thing is a non-negotiable. I do it every Sunday, and it keeps me in such, line, And I wanted to say too, that for this podcast, feel free to remix or take, any of these techniques that I do and apply them to your own business and your own life. Let me know how they work for you. And yeah, just you can take it straight from what I'm saying. I feel like it's a really great blueprint. I've taken these ideas from lots of different people, lots of productivity, things that I've read. So much so that nowadays I don't even know where half of these things have come from. I just started implementing them in my life and found that they worked. Now the Sunday night is finished. We're ready to move on to the rest of the week. I have a ritual that I do every morning and every evening. It's my daily check-in. This is kind of it's a little bit of my own ideas, and it's mixed in with some things that I heard Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income talking about, and also the guys behind the 5-minute journal. Now, I don't have a 5-minute journal, but I did like some of the questions, and I just do them in my own way in my own journal. So the very first thing that I do is I either write down one of my quotes or affirmations. This is when I wake up. My quote or affirmations, or I pull a card from like Danielle LaPorte's Truth Bomb or Gabby Bernstein's Miracles Now deck, which is my current favorite. And I just write down my kind of universal quote for the day, whatever comes up, and that's what I'm going to align myself with. Then I write down 2 to 3 core desired feelings. I can never just pick one. I mean, maybe you should pick one, but I always feel like I need to have at least 2 or 3. So I'm like the sum of the three core desired feelings. I never pick one. But you can pick one, or you can be like me and pick 3 or 2. So I'll write my core desired feelings. How do I want to feel today? For instance, this morning I wrote productive, healthy, and loving. That's how I wanted to organize myself for the day. Lastly, I write out my top priorities. I tried to keep it 3 to 4 so it's not overwhelming. I will write down what needs to happen in work, so my priorities for work, and that will take up like one of my priorities. And then the remaining 2 are usually the same. It's like the first priority will be work, and I'll pick like what has to happen in work today, and it might be like two things that have to happen. And then the second priority is usually exercise and healthy eating, which is really important to me. And then the third one is usually like relaxation. So making sure that today's my top priority is to have some time to relax and have self-care. So I make sure that ratio of self-care to work is kind of like 2 to 3. That one priority is work related, and then those other two priorities are self-care related. But depending on your life and what's going on in your life, it might be completely different for you, what your priorities are. I don't have kids or pets. I don't have a lot of external responsibility besides my business, so once I'm finished, it's time for me to take time out to really care for myself. Then the second part of the ritual that bookends every day, either when I'm in bed or when I'm about to get into bed, I'll just pull out my journal again, and I write down what was awesome in the day, and I just go through anything that was just really awesome and I achieved and I was grateful about, or anything that makes me feel good. So I'm priming myself for to go to sleep and to wake up tomorrow morning feeling great. So I write what was awesome, and then I also just write a little blurb about what could have been better. So this is where I identify patterns of the things that are holding me back from having the best productivity. To be completely transparent, I think the things that show up the most in my what could have been better are this tends to be eating healthily or eating with more intention consciously. So those are the days when I'm just like shoving food in my mouth and I'm not really thinking about it. Exercise sometimes falls to the wayside, so that's usually a thing that could have been better. And then another one that comes up a lot is I sometimes fall into the pattern of working without intention. And so I put that in my what could have been better is I could have taken more breaks, to refresh my mind, to stand more, to just maybe do some jumping jacks, every 45 minutes. These are the days when usually I don't set up a clear time to work on a project, and next thing I know, it takes me 4 hours when I thought that it would just take me 1, and the day is kind of done. So I like to keep observant of those patterns, and I know that I have a tendency to fall into that, what I see as a negative pattern of working without intention. And so really all of this schedule, all of these tools are just a way for me to really see like how I'm working and identify the places where I can work better. So, and sometimes what could have been better is I could have had a more loving conversation with someone. or I could have reached out to a friend, so I just like to see that. And often I write what I'm excited for the next day. And that kind of gets me primed for like a good night's sleep and then waking up the next morning feeling positive. So that's something that I do every day and every night. Sometimes I don't do it on the weekends. But I wanted to walk you through my week day by day so you can see what I prioritize working on and how I kind of loosely schedule my week. And this does change. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's how I like my ideal week to be. Monday is usually my day to reorganize, get myself organized, and kind of go through all of like the sort of boring bits and bobs that need to get done in the week. I usually start off by buffering my social media. I'm a big fan of Buffer. I make sure that there's enough posts in there that will get me through to the next Monday. I like to buffer my social media because that gives me the opportunity to actually go on social media and be social rather than finding things to post and worrying about posting at different times. And make sure that I am active on social media, posting pretty consistently on a schedule. But then when I give myself like an hour during the day to go and be social, I can actually have conversations with people. It frees up a lot more time for me to be truly helpful and connecting with the people who follow me on social media and that I follow them too. So I go into Buffer and make sure that my social media accounts are all topped up for the week. Then I go in and I track and analyze my metrics from a variety of sources, whether it's podcast listeners through Libsyn or Google Analytics on my website, or just checking, different social media stats on Buffer to see which of my posts would get the most engagement, things like that. I can't say that I have a formalized system for it. It's something that will probably come in the future where I have a more formalized system of tracking. But right now I'm just kind of tracking with my eyes and making sure that I see any like unique patterns that are coming out and just seeing what what everything is doing pretty much. What it's doing, where people are sort of coming, how they're finding me. Things like that. But I know that there's a whole art and science to metrics testing, and the geek in me would like to dig a lot deeper into it, and that's definitely on my to-do list. Then I go into Facebook ads, and if I need to update any of my Facebook ads for the week, if there's anything I'm advertising, then this is when I'll do them. And I'll make sure that they're scheduled out for the rest of the week. Like if I want to run a Facebook ad that's only on a Sunday, I'll set it up on Monday and make sure that it's running on Sunday. Last thing that I definitely do on a Monday is I'm a big fan of inbox zero. So I like to get my inbox down to zero. And a lot of stuff does pile up over the weekend. So I do spend the most considerable amount of time on a Monday going into my email inbox and responding to who needs to be responded to, organizing things, organizing clients and client deadlines and the client-based work I'm going to be doing for the week. And just, in general, just getting myself like email organized. If there's time left over, which there usually is, that tends to just take me the morning to do all of those things. And in the afternoon, I wind up working on client-based projects. Tuesday is really heavily focused on clients' needs and content creation and research for when that time's over. So when I've done everything that I need to do with clients, then I'm going to go in to create some content, whether that is a blog post, an article, scripting a video, or creating something for like an online course. And then I'll also be doing some research for, if I'm teaching a webinar that week, I'll do research for it. I'll do research for my podcast that I'd be recording on a Wednesday. Wednesday is my podcast workflow day. I tend to do everything on the same day, so I'll lightly script. The podcasts aren't scripted themselves, but I might take some notes and make some notes. So I'm going to get my loose script ready, finish any research that needs to get done, write out my show notes, and then I will record my podcast, edit it, and schedule it, put it up on my put it up on my dashboard, and then also create the blog post on Squarespace that goes along with the episode. And I have like a list of my workflow, and I just make sure that everything in my workflow is checked off. My Thursday workflow really depends on the week. If I'm teaching a webinar, I'll teach it on a Thursday, and there'll be a specific webinar workflow that is, advertising for the webinar, making sure that my notes are ready, setting up the Google Hangouts. So there's a whole workflow that goes along with webinars. If I'm not teaching a webinar, then I am either doing one of two things on a Thursday. I'm either creating content, like videos, blog posts, online courses, or I am finishing up my client work for the week. Now, some weeks I'm finished by a Thursday with clients and I don't have anything that I have left to do. Some weeks are more client intensive. It really depends on the week. But my goal is every Thursday to make sure that I've wrapped up all of the needs of my clients for the week. And when I'm finished that, I write out any notes about what needs to happen next week. And then I update my client chart. So the big chart that I have that tells me where all my clients are at any given time and what needs to happen. I just make sure that that's updated. So when I do my Sunday night check-in, it's a lot easier because I know exactly what I should be working on the next week. Friday is probably my favorite day in business. I don't do anything client related unless it's an emergency, or sometimes, you do, because of scheduling, can only catch someone on a Friday. So I do have to make like some amends to that. So it's not hard and fast that I don't do client work on Fridays, but I try not to. It's one of my boundaries because I do work specifically on my business on a Friday. First thing that I do is I have a money date with myself. Money date is when I go into my accounting software. I make sure that all my new transactions are categorized. I visualize my money goals and I dream of abundance, and I make sure that call more abundance into my life. And then I go through all of my accounts and I just make not only like a physical assessment of how much money that I make, but I also make an energetic assessment of everything that I have in the world, So I make sure that I do this from a place of gratitude. I make sure that I appreciate my money date, and I make sure that it's not a stressful experience. The other thing about Fridays that I love is I give myself the afternoon. I call it the out-of-the-box work. And really what this means is it's my time for out-of-the-box thinking, for fun work, for play, for doing the things that I wouldn't necessarily do during the week. I love Fridays, especially this out-of-the-box time, because rather than just saying, okay, I've finished all my work for the week, so I'm just going to knock off early and then take a long weekend, which I could do because most Thursdays I'm finished everything on my to-do list for the week because of this great schedule, and really intentionally planning what I'm going to work on and what my priorities are for the week. So there's not this never-ending to-do list. There is a finite to-do list. And when it's done, then it's time to take some time off, to play. But I like to spend some time on Friday just working on some out-of-the-box things because, as you probably know, I have a lot of multifaceted interests, whether that's science or writing a screenplay or writing a novel or recording some cool videos, or doing some photography work. I am so interested in a multitude of things. And so Friday gives me the opportunity to do work, quote unquote work, but it kind of comes from a little bit of left field. So it's not necessarily income or revenue generating. It's things that light me up, but they're just a bit beyond a hobby. They actually do in some way kind of connect to my work. So yeah, give myself that opportunity to either feel inspired or, there's nothing that has to be done. There's no to-do list that needs to get ticked off, but I make sure that I am working, or I'm spending some time on having big thoughts in my business, like some visionary thoughts about where I could go in the future, what needs to happen, not on like a very small level. So this is like ideas, for example, coming up with the idea to do a podcast, that came up on a Friday, on one of those Friday out of the box thinking days. I was like, what can I do? It was just like, podcast. If I didn't give myself the opportunity to just sit there and think and dream big, then maybe that idea would never have come about and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. So I love Friday. And then after Friday, I take off for the weekend. Some weekends, I like to say that I always take off on a weekend. Some weeks are busier than others, and sometimes work does flow over to the weekend. It's pretty rare nowadays, and I really do appreciate it, but I'm not that strict with myself that, like, if I need to work on a weekend, I will just sit and do a few hours of work, and it's not that big of a deal. Because I love my work, so it's not that stressful for me to have it carry over onto the weekend. But I will have a caveat and say that the schedule that I just expressed to you is definitely not the way that I've been working for a really long time. So this is a new thing. It's like I've been trying it out for like 6 months. I feel like it's working really well. I'm much happier in my work. I'm getting so much more done. And it's really awesome to get to the end of the week on a Friday and say I have done everything on my to-do list for this week. And if I do have to work on a weekend, that's fine. Because, there's usually a really good reason for why I have to work on the weekend. And that usually means that if I'm working a weekend, it's because I took some random time off during the week. Like, it was beautiful out on a Wednesday, and I took a half day, and I went to the beach. And so, the exchange is that I spend a few hours on a Saturday finishing up all the loose ends. Now, I hope that at least some of these tips and techniques, how I schedule my week, can be really helpful for you, and maybe you'll start trying it in your weekly thing, in your weekly schedule, and I'd like to hear how it's actually working for you. But I kind of wanted to conclude with some tips that I found really helpful that I think you might find helpful too. And the first one is to set boundaries, because it's really important not only to set boundaries, but also to communicate your boundaries clearly. So, for example, when I start working with clients for web design projects, I make sure that I communicate with them that I do web design projects from Monday through Thursday during normal business hours, but also if need be, because a lot of my clients are, like, I'm in Central Europe and a lot of my clients are on, say, the West Coast of America, and that's a 9-hour time difference, so it can be tricky to make sure that we get a call in. And so I'm okay with bending these rules sometimes and scheduling a call at night when I normally would not be working. But I just think it's important to communicate. I like to let my clients know that I work on client projects until Thursday, and then Friday I work on my own business. So they can expect that if they write me an email on Thursday night, they won't hear back from me until Monday morning. I think that as long as both parties know and you set the boundaries, that they will respect the boundaries that you set. And this, the boundaries can go for like family members. I have times where I have to just say, okay, I'm going into my bubble for 2 hours and I need to not be disturbed because I just need to get this work done in a quiet bubble for myself. So yeah, boundaries definitely need to set them, communicate them, and stick to them the best that you can. Another important thing is having email and social media vigilance. This schedule would not work for me if I was on Facebook all day long. So how I set my vigilance is in the morning, I allow myself an hour to check my email and to get on social media and respond to everything that needs to be responded to. Usually I can get everything done within an hour. I try to set a timer so I know that the time's up. And then I'll give myself another bit of time, maybe like a half an hour, depending. Luckily I don't get a million emails, so it doesn't take me a super long time to get through them. But I'll give myself another time in the afternoon, maybe about 4 o'clock, kind of like when I'm about to finish work. I'll check my email again, and then I'll check social media again. And like I said, I've already buffered my social media posts, so they're going out there. I just go onto social media at this point to just respond to messages and check in here and there, in groups and things like that. I find that the email thing is really powerful to just keep it to like 2 times a day, and then I might check it one more time like later on at night. Email and social media, can be such a time suck, and I want to get some big things done in the world, so I know that I can't be the type of person that's on Facebook all day long. And I've talked about this more in the episode on taking your power back from the internet, so if you haven't listened to that one yet, I'd recommend that you do go back there, because I offer up some really good tips on how you can get more freedom on the internet and not get sucked into all of these time sucks. So another tip is to make sure that you schedule in self-care actually on your schedule, and to reward yourself for job well done. So I make sure that I reward myself with nice food and chocolate and wine on Friday nights, and then give myself a nice, good, relaxing weekend. Next tip is to move towards a space of more action-based productivity. I spent a long time on really passive productivity where I thought I was getting a lot done in the day. I was watching YouTube videos, I was learning how to do things, I was listening to webinars. I was spending a lot of time learning, and I wasn't spending hardly any time actively producing. I've made a huge shift in my business now to spend more of my time, almost all of my time actually, actively producing, and has made such a difference. If I am learning, I take advantage of learning resources like YouTube videos, podcasts, listening to webinars or webinar replays. I'll do them. I'll listen to them. I'll make sure I have them on in the background. I would say that I'm learning for most of the time that I'm working. I have something on in the background that's teaching me something, whether it's marketing, business, design, productivity, whether it's science or cinema or photography, anything. I just make sure that I'm like keeping my brain active in the background by learning. But this is why I'm actively working. So I'm either working on client projects or I'm working on my own things. It can be really easy to fall into the trap of always researching, of always learning and not actively producing. So make sure and just look on your schedule and say, how much time am I actively doing work? Like as in creating courses, writing blog posts, reaching out to people in your industry that you need to reach out to. These are all action-based productivity things. Let's see. Other things that I do is, and I recommend, put it all in your schedule. Block off the time. Make sure that you've got everything that you need to do in your schedule, whether that's exercise, time for breaks, time with your family. Schedule that baby down as much as you can and make it real and say, I'm spending 3 hours every morning writing my book, or I'm going to spend an hour a day really networking on social media. Just get it down and get it into the schedule. And this is my last one, and I just think so many people don't do this. I wasn't doing it for a really long time. It's totally changed a lot of things for me, and that is to schedule in time for free thought and creative connection. Hardly anyone does this, and it's so important. So I realized that after I was getting really into scheduling, I realized that I was totally overscheduling my mind. So it's kind of like I always set up something for my mind to think about. And I wasn't giving my mind any time to just think, and create new neural pathways and come up with cool ideas and new ideas for my business. And so I've definitely put that into my schedule now, where I give myself some space and time to just do nothing. And that doesn't mean I'm meditating. It means I am literally just sitting there thinking. And when I made this change in my schedule and I actually set some time out for my mind to just think, I noticed such a difference in my creativity. I was thinking faster, I was thinking better, I was having more creative ideas, I was making cool connections between things. And it all came from just giving myself some time with an unoccupied mind to just think. So super important. Hopefully you get some time to schedule this in your day. And if not in your day, then at least some point in your week. Even if it's just on a commute, rather than distracting your mind with learning or listening to the radio or listening to music or something like that, give yourself some silent time to just allow the mind to take a natural, almost dreamlike trajectory through your brain and see what comes out, because you might be surprised. This is why people have great ideas in the shower, because there's no distraction. You're allowing your mind just some unfettered time to think, and this is when the mind creates some really cool new paths. So yeah, if I could leave you with one thing, it's two things actually. One is try the Sunday night routine. Try to get yourself set up for the week and stay organized in that schedule. And two is give yourself some time for pure, unadulterated thinking and see what kind of cool, creative concepts come out. Okay, so wrapping it up, there's just a few things I want to say to you guys before I head off. The first is that there is a thriving digital community aspect of this podcast. It's a place where you can meet other spirited entrepreneurs, find an accountability partner, get inspired, and share your business. You'll find your invitation as well as other details about the show on thesepodreview.com. You can find any additional instructions about how to subscribe and leave a review, plus show notes, how to submit a question, recommend a guest, or contact me at thesepod.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at Hey Nicole Harlow. The Spirited Entrepreneur podcast is sponsored by the folks over at Audible. They've been really generous and have offered an audiobook of your choice completely free to all listeners of the show. A book that I think really ties in beautifully with the theme of today's show is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This one was huge for me, and it actually really inspired me to create this schedule. To download your free copy of 7 Habits today, go to theaudibletrial.com/spirited. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spirited. And download 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or choose from one of the 180,000 titles available. This is Nicole Harlow, and until next time, have a great day.